Remember why you gonna do it? Oh yes. biko ego eji mmanwụ
nganga wego besari babode ma nganga wego besari babode ma ole sari be ya tiki be ya di ma egu nganga wego titi no tabeli wego nganga wego ndo mo la di ma nganga e nganga wego tidi no tagali wego nganga wego ndomo la de manganga tidi no tagali wego nganga wego ndomo la de manganga
Very wonderful neighborhood. ito ha ga-enye ya. Anyị nwere apa na ihe ndị ọzọ ọgọ nọ. Onye nze. Oh yes. Ọ wụrụ onye nze kụziri ụmụ ya ụmụ na biko. Onye nze na-abịa ịgbara ha ụgbọ. Ọ wụrụ onye nze. Oh yes. Naga. On galandu open the man. You can tell them a look up for one of them on off. Oh yes. I got some.
Because I don't hear about time. When you need an hour about you can think how I can. But you can go right here and about time.
Then one them to go say they no one na leave. No work to chat to go to. Ochoa onye yi na gebi. Tika akwaso si kuku. Nwa yi na gebi. So I let to room ogun. Why am I going I'm tired of talking about I hear about our woman. You go see your amazing. I'm all why they can't only go sweat. Thank you, my brother. I don't see you in the car about you can take it away to be again. I'm also snap now. Let's try it as weird. And let's go here. I'm supposed to go here. And I'm just with this out to me. I'm very happy today. It's one of the happiest things I've ever done. Thank you, my brother. Because I'm working harder than the weekend. If I'm going to get in, I'm going to
okorobịa ị ga-abụ nne na nna taa bịa ka gị na-ebiri nkwa ị na-ekwe ya
nwunye m nkwa na-ekwu ya ọzọ nkwasị na-ekwu ya na a na-enye ya ịhụnanya ebe o kwesịrị ihe nwere kwesịrị iru n'ebe nwoke nọ na nwaanyị nọ mmegide banyere ebe kwesịrị iru ndị nkwa na-ekwu ya okwu n'aka na-ekwu ya nkwa ebe ka na ma ahụ ya n'anya karịsịa ihe ọbụla
ndewo ịlegharị anya ị ga-ahụ ndị isi n'ebe ndị na-ebe ihe anyị mere n'ụbọchị taa kee okwu ndụmọdụ ole na ole i nwere inye ha
ebe ihe na-agwa ha nwụrụ na onye na-eme uche ihe ọ na-eme ekpeka na-ekpere ha onye ha akụ na ụba ka a wee nweta nwunye nke aka ha nwunye ọzọ na ama ọtụ ndị mehụrụ n'elu nwaanyị n'ọnwa okwunye gọzi ji ha alụbeghị nwaanyị anọgwa ha chi ike chọchi nwaanyị ike na ha ga-amụte
ka Chineke onye dị ike niile gozi agbamakwụkwọ na ruo ọmụmụ wee chọrọ mma n'aha onye nwe Jizọs Kraịst n'aha ndị mmadụ ejije akwụdo production n'aha atọ Affluent Love daalụ Mama ndewo biko anyị ga-ala ka ịmatata aha gị Mrs. ndewo biko ana m adụ na gị mama Emeka onye nke gbara nkwụ taa biko anyị ga-ala ka ịmatata otu obi dị gị
nwanne m obi dị ụtọ ihe onye awọla ebube nke Chineke ime ka Emeka nwa m bụrụ onye lụtara nwaanyị n'ụbọchị taa. Ana m arịọ Chineke ka ọ na-ebi ebe ụzọ niile ka Chineke were nwoke na nke nwaanyị gọziere m ha.
ndewo dịka nwa gị ọhụụ enwe okwu ndụmọdụ ole na ole ị nwere inye ya
Okwu ndụmọdụ m nwere inye ewu site taa achọrọ m ka nwunye ya kpọọ nwunye nwaanyị ya nwaanyị ya bụrụ nwaanyị ya wụrụkwanụ di nwaanyị ya jide nwunye ka nọ n'ahịa dịka Kraịst na ha abụọ mana ugbu a ha wụọla otu ọnụ ala.
ndewo gee nkwa ị na-egwe ndị ọgọ gị ndị na-ahapụ nwa ha taa ka ha bịapụta ọnụ nna ha biri gee nkwa ị na-ekwe ndị ọgọ gị ndị na-ahapụ nwa ha taa ha bịapụta gị ka gị na ha biri
Nkwa m na-ekwe ha wụ ka Chineke gọzie ha niile n'ogologo ndụ na mgbasi ike nke ọna ka mụ na ha were ọganihu na ịhụnanya wee na-eme ọgụ.
enwe ọfụ ole na ole ị ga-agụrụ nwa gị
Anya m ga-agọrọ nwa m ogologo ndụ ka m ga-agọrọ ya na nwunye na ogologo ndụ na mgbasi ike nke ọna ihe ọbụla ha etiri aka Chineke gọzie ọ bụrụ ihe ga-aga nke ọma ya gọzie ubi ha ka ọ bụrụ ubi nwaanyị.
ndewo ka Chineke onye dị ike niile mee ka ọgbamakwụkwọ ahụ ihe ga-aga nke ọma n'aha onye nwe Jizọs Kraịst
Amen.
daalụ mama ndewo biko anyị ga-ala ka ịmatata aha gị
Mary Anson.
Mrs. Mary Anson daalụ biko anyị hụ ndị ọbịa agbakọrọ ebe a taa ihe niile nke na-akpọ ebe a biko anyị ga-ala ka ịkọwatara ihe a na-eme ebe a taa
Etu obi chere m taa agụma eziokwu asị m Chineke ụbọchị nke taa wụ ụbọchị nke Chineke kwadoro m n'ụbọchị taa n'ebe nwa m nọ obiọma na-akpa ma akpafechi m obi na ihe niile na a na-eme n'ụbọchị
daalụ anụ m n'ọnụ isi n'ebe nwa gị na-adịghị gị wụ mmanwụ Chikwado onye nke na-eme ihe a taa daalụ biko ka ekwu ndụmọdụ ole na ole ị nwere inye nwa gị dịka ọ na-ahapụ ụlọ taa ka gowe ndị dị ka ha na-abịrị
nwanne m okwu ndụmọdụ m na-enye ewu Chineke ga-agọzi ha na di ya ọ ga-eruwe di isi di ya gwara eruwe ya isi a ga-eji obiọma na ọ na ezinụlọ ha nọ n'ime agaghị enwe nsogbu ọbụla
Chineke ga-akwadoro ha ọkpọtọ kwadoro ha enyi ihe a ga-eri agaghị akọ ha and a ga-enwe akụnụba ga-ezuru oke nwekwe na nwa ga-ezuru oke a ga-amụta mụta nwoke mụta nwa a ga-amụta ọmụ nwoke mụta ọmụ nwa ga-adịrị ha mma a ga-ekwukwe na ha anụ ihe obiọma na-akpakashi mma.
Ndewo ka Chineke onye ji ike niile onye mere ka ihe nke a dịrị taa n'ụbọchị taa ka onye ha aga m n'ihu ka ọ gọzie ọmụmụ ka ọ gọzie agbamnkwụ ha ọmụmụ nwoke ọmụmụ nwaanyị n'aha onye nwaanyị Jizọs Kraịst. Ndewo.
Ịgbalịa.
Papa emekọrọ nke na-agba nkwụ taa. Ana m atụla gị papa emekọrọ nke na-agba nkwụ taa.
Emeka na-agba nkwụ taa ya nwaanyị onwe ya ụjọ ọkpara m ọ ga-ekele Chineke na ụjọ ọzọ nwaanyị na ande ọchukwu eme ebere n'osoro ọzọ nwaanyị n'ihu na ndụ obiọma gwara m n'ụbọchị nke taa oge echiri okwu ikwu na ibe ma ndị ọgọ ma ụmụnna ma ndị frens ma ndị ọgọ ha niile jiri okpukpe ọma awụ nke ha mere ya na ekpere ezuzo na ọnwụ enwe nsogbu ọbụla pụtara n'ime ịdị m niile gara ka ọma ekele m Chineke ka eji ụbọchị nke taa ụdachi nwere m ihe n'obi ọma n'oge awụ na anya nna rịọ Chineke nna ka ndị niile hụrụ ya maka ịgba nkwụ oche Chineke nna ji wetụrụ ha abịa ka o mee ebere ka o dukwa ha laghachikwa n'aha Jizọs.
Amen. Ndewo. Dịka nwa gị na-abanye na otu ndị lụrụ nwaanyị taa, enwe okwu ndụmọdụ ole na ole ị nwere inye ya?
N'eziokwu n'ezi asụsụ ndụmọdụ m na-enye ya wụ nwa na onwe m akwụkwọ ma afred mmadụ dịka oje nwoke chiri mụta nwa mgbezi ọpụta ya jiri lụọ nwaanyị ọ ga-enye nwa ya ndụmọdụ nke onye lụrụ nwaanyị na ya nwunye bie n'udo na ọṅụ. Nwa m nwoke emegbule nwunye ya emegbule nwa m nwoke ka ha mee gịnị ka ha ewuru ofu obi wee na-ebi na ndụ na ntị ha wee too ogologo ma ha mụta nwa oje ndakwana ha na-ebi onye ga mma ọrụ.
Ndewo. Ka ọfọ ị na-agụrụ ha na nwunye n'ụbọchị taa?
Onye ọfọ ha dị ka m na-agụrụ ha n'ụbọchị nke taa mere anyị na-agba mbụ ka ọzụzụ agụkwara nwaanyị lụbatakwara n'igwe obiọma gbara m n'ụdị nke ahụ gbakwana nwunye m nne ya gbakwana ụmụnne m niile ma ụmụnne m nke nwaanyị kpọpụrụ ha niile soro ụmụma n'ụbọchị nke taa so ha niile zuru oke n'ezinụlọ ụlọ ọga anyị
ụgwọ ha ka o were ọmụmụ nwoke ọmụmụ nwaanyị wee chọọ ha mma n'aha onye nwe anyị Jizọs Kraịst. Ndewo sir. Thank you.
N'eziokwu n'ezi asụsụ obi dị nsọsọ anwele ịfụ na ọ dị ihe a mere taa anụme n'udo na-enweghị nsogbu ọbụla. Ana m arịọ Chineke bi n'igwe si ya ebe ọbụla onye ọbụla si bịa mmemme a n'ụbọchị taa ka onye nwe anyị si otu ahụ biko sibedoro ha bịa mmemme a ndị na-esi ebe ha si ma ndị si Anambra ma ndị si Abia steeti ma ndị si Imo steeti na ọda steeti nọ na Naịjirịa bịa mmemme n'ụbọchị taa. Amasịkwa onye nwe anyị du ọrụ ma ndị si Abuja ma ndị si Lagos steeti. I have so many of them around here. Ekpere m n'mgbede a na Chineke onye nwe anyị ga-edu ọnụ udo onye ọbụla n'ebe o site n'udo n'ọnwụ n'aha Jizọs. Ma ndị ọnụ ụlọ n'obere anọnyere m afụrụ m na ọtụtụ ndị nọ na mmemme n'ụbọchị taa bụ nọ n'ụlọ ha riri nne afụrụ m ha. Ana m ekele ọnụ ncha niile ndị ọnụ ga-ana-aga ọnụ na n'udo na bụ unu n'aha Jizọs. Nna agwa ụmụ okorobịa n'ebe na-anụbeghị nwaanyị n'ụmụ agbọghọbịa n'ebe a na-anụbeghị n'oti ka onye nwe anyị dịka o si mee ka Chikwado pụta mmụọ pụtakwana ya ka onye nwe anyị mekwara n'otu ahụ n'aha Jizọs. Ihe ọbụla bụ ọdachi ebe ọbụla o si abịa ọmadụ na-eme ya ọ bụ mmụọ ebe ọbụla o si ka onye nwe ọ dị ya n'aha Jizọs. Ọnụ ga-amụta dịbụ mma di nwere ego. All the potentials you need in a man, you see it in Jesus' name. Because I think I know up over. I have to go into the band today, all the way from home. The praise was in the hand because the nice praise because I can so much. Can you MC on your one bonito? ịnwere ihe niile mee kedu onye ọbụla tinye aka n'ụzọ ọbụla ụzọ iji mee ka mmemme aga ọfụma ekelele onye ọbụla anyị na-ekpe ekpere mmechi ụgbọ ọrịa onye bịa na nke achịkọtara okwu onye bịa na nke ekelele chịkọta mmemme ahụ wee kpee ekpere anyị na-asị ka Chineke nna dị ike niile kelee onye ọbụla obi dịkwa mma dịka m pụrụ ebe a nwanne Boniface obi dị anyị aṅụrị anyị na-ekele ndị ọgọ anyị ndị moto akwụ ndị kpọnyere anyị nwa ha nwaanyị n'ụbọchị taa anyị ji obi aṅụrị na-ekele ụnụ anyị na ọrụ tụkọtara aka wee mee mmemme a ya gaa n'udo n'ọṅụ dịda ihe ekelele gị sa anyị na-asị ka onye nwe anyị dịrị onye ọbụla laa n'ụzọ dị iche iche gozie onye ọbụla n'ime afọ a ma n'ime afọ ọbụla anyị ga-abanye nwee ndị a wee kpere anyị site n'aha Jizọs Kraịst onye nwe anyị anyị echefukwana ikele ndị ọmụmụala ndị gbara ya ogwu biko onye nwe anyị gozie ụnụ kele ndị bandị na ndị ọbụla nke obodo iche na ndị ọgọ niile ndị ọgọ anyị dị iche iche bụrụ ebe anyị kelele ụnụ ndị si Delta steeti ọgọ anyị pati anyị kelele gị ndị si ebe niile dị iche iche ọrụ ndị ọgọ anyị dị iche iche anyị kelele ụnụ anyị na-asị onye nwe anyị gozie onye ọbụla ụsatụnigwe okwu achọ onye ọbụla mmadụ kwuru mmadụ dịka ọnụ nwere anyị nke a Chineke bi n'eluigwe ga-agọzi unu ma nyere unu aka n'ụzọ ọbụla ụzọ afọrọ ha ga-abanye ga-amara ụlọ mma karịa dịka ọ dị na mbụ site n'aha Jizọs Kraịst anyị the praise people anyị ekelekele gị n'ọbụla ihe onye mmemme kemgbe ụwa anyị kelele gị sa ime ihe ule ndị mmadụ biko ọjọ bụkwa ha nwe ma ọnụ na-enye anyị nwa nna m n'ọnụ kpọrọ isi n'ọnụ onye mkpọnwa agwọ gị na nwee nka gbogbo esiri wepụta ọnụ onye na-ekwube Boniface anya dịka dị mụrụ m chi obi ụgbọ a dịkwabịa kele dịdị mụrụ m anyị ekelele ndị agara m ihu emisi anya gị na-apụga dịdị m ama na nnụm onye nwoke mgbe ụwa ekele na ya emisi dịdị ede mụrụ m nke ama m gị echezọrọ m enwere wepụ ị ga-esi mee gị hapụga nwanne m nwoke dịdị ọ ga-adịrị gị na mma biko
Chega kokwana memana dorono mlobo mwa. Chega kokwana memana dorono mlobo mwa. Ujebe chile. Chega kokwana memana na dorono mlobo mwa. Aina jerega lori yeneji ya. Ego mgenye no nogo miya kolamu. Chega kokwana memana dorono mlobo mwa. Uwira marano. Chega kokwana memana dorono mlobo mwa. Amo wezelele. m ga-enye n'ụlọ bụ ya kụlamụ ego kọkwa nna m ma na natụrụ m n'ọbụ ngwa na naanụ na-elu ego kọkwa nna m ma na nna m ihe mkpanaka oke amara m ana gbadibia dibia gbakwa nna m ego kọkwa nna m ma na natụrụ m n'ọbụ ngwa ihe lori ihe nne jiri ya ya ego m ga-enye n'ụlọ bụ ya kụlamụ ego kọkwa nna m ma na natụrụ m n'ọbụ ngwa awaka mụrụ m n'ihu ego kọkwa nna m ma na natụrụ m n'ọbụ ngwa ijelule ego kọkwa nna m ma na natụrụ m n'ọbụ ngwa ihe lori ihe nne jiri ya ya ego m ga-enye n'ụlọ bụ ya kụlamụ otu nwakịrị mara mma m jiri kpọ ana n'Ọnịcha reality studio nwakịrị nwanyị ọma mara mma nwakịrị m kpọtara ebe m jiri tikwu egwu akpọrọla m nwatakịrị ọdọ enyi m gbaba anya nga mụ ndị mma na-agbakọma ele n'ebe m ji jee n'ọgbọ anwarị mma ọsọ ndanarị nwanne m nwoke shi m onye regọkpa ojiri n'onyere mma ihu na-acha nwakịrị m kpọtara Ọnịcha ha gbasọtala ndị ebe ego ịkpakwanyere ma kpachie ike ebe obi nomali maka ndị aka asị ekekere ụwa biko anyekwanụ m oke erula m chiege kọkwa nna m ma na na m ihe mkpanaka nne m ụmụ chiege kọkwa nna m ma na dọrọnụ m n'ọbụ mgbalagị obi na gbarịwana chiege kọkwa nna m ma na na m ihe mkpanaka kristianori ihe nne jiri ya ya ego m ga-enye n'ụlọ bụ ya kọlamụ ego kọkwa nna m ma na dọrọnụ m n'ọbụ mma ijelule ego kọkwa nna m ma na dọrọnụ m n'ọbụ mma ihe lori ihe nne jiri ya ya ego m ga-enye n'ụlọ bụ ya kụlamụ ile ọhụgo jiri mee onye kpakpa nyere mmanwụ
ọnụ mmiri Chineke agọghị nwa
When you are many there, food. Okay. It's not there.
I will list of married husband for our daughter in what Number one, Mbabu Mvuzu Miami to stay. 16 cola loss. Igbo type.
Where they are, I never will be saying, so, 16. Okay, I don't know. And then you know they go to balance. I made way for. Oh, I know all the other people who been there. Who come from us? I'm not there. When I give you the answer, I got to do it. She can go around the room. Come on, down to over. I'm going to move the two or the one more than because you want my one over him not do what you do. You want my you may take as you be your own. One my casual carrier, you may oh, yeah, it was that in the world. What am I saying? How would I just Samana? George just for him, or woman, I am doing. I let you go, but I'm like it. Yeah, we're going to give him money. Is that how you do it? So I didn't even like at least I did too much of costly society. Mommy. I will never be son of Kayaman's Okay,
nwaanyị na-ahụ ya ahụhụ ya na-agwa gị otu ọzọ gị mmiri gbanyụ akpọ nwaanyị maala ya mmiri a
iji anyị ụgwọ
ndị ibere gwa m ụgwọ ihe ọgbọgbọ
onye a na-abụrụ ihe ọgba ga-ebe
m na-abịa
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Man on the Bama. Yes, hold up. Four heads of tobacco and Star beer. Two cartons of stout beer. Beer one. One is here. I did 3,000 naira.
Ebe wetara wa iji mee ka ọsọ asụ n'ozu zuru ịgba n'ihe anyị
ya bụ oge ozi ya were 1 million naira were tinye na bọọkụ ọgbata bụ emume ewe ịchọ di ya ọ chọtakwa nne ya mana nke a wụ a ga-akpọ ada anyị nwaanyị
Meji na Imanu nwaanyị na-abanabeghị anyị was the chairman of this village. Meji ma bịara here bụ ndị agbasịrị anyị. Ma ọ wụ ya mbịara ụnyaahụ ndị imewo unu nyere ndị a list this then give us the whole thing account for ya azụ anya afọ echiri nọ na-abana. Unu chọkwara ị ga-afọwụ ya lele ọ gbasara unu ọ gbasara mkpụrụ anyị ọ nwere ike ịje ahụ na ịbịa n'oge echiri na-eme ọzọ efokwa abụ na mba ime na-ebi ịkpọrọ
dịka ebe setụrụ ụlọ maka nwee ike ya na so biko adịghị otu ikpe nọ na nke a gwasị nwere ebe anyị ga-eleru n'ebe ụlọ ahụkwana anyị gara ebe wepụ bọtị hụ na nke a manye emezuru ihe nna ahụ anyị
The bottle of hot drink and the sum of 1,000 naira. A big shield, a jar of palm wine, a bottle of hot drink, and a 1,000 naira.
A bottle of hot drink of 1,000 naira. What's a bottle of hot drink and 1,000 naira? That's what you say.
Arrivo, che lei ọkwanụ nke a gaji ya gazie ọkwanye ihe ọga ya ekene dịghị nwa m nwoke ndị ọgọ mụ na nwụchi ahụ
onye lọba na-aga alụ ma na-eji mgbe ọ ya ajụ mgbe ọ gbara ihe na-enye ndị ka anyị ga-ewere mmanụ onye anyị ga-eburu mmanụ onye emeta anyị agwọta ego ka anyị were mmanụ onye kpọkwu anyị were mmanụ onye kpọkwu rada naanị ka eji anyị ga-ekpọkwu ego ya
Mama, nwere ike maazị taa echi adị maazị echi dị adịkwa ha echi ọ bụ ga-ewepụ ihe
So amechara m anyị jekwa jụọ ha nke echi n'ebe anyị na-azụ ji ndị ndị ọka sọrọ ya bụ ọgwụ ji ahụ ọwa ego ole ha sị anyị nọ n'otu ogbe echicha anyị ọ ga-abụ otu ogbe ji otu 100 anyị gotekwuru 150 ha so ọ ga-awụ 200 so
Thank you.
No, it's so fire.
This was the moment they'd all been waiting for. The kiss that said it all. Prince William and his bride, the new Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, sent the crowds into a frenzy as they sealed their marriage with a very public show of love. 1 million people had converged on Buckingham Palace to share their happiness. 2 billion people were watching around the world. It was a day that brought a smile to everyone's face. Outside Westminster Abbey, the crowds had begun to gather from early morning. Some hardy souls had spent the past 3 nights camping out to ensure they had the best possible view.
I've been to their wedding, the Queen, when she was a youngster. I've followed up with Princess Diana, Margaret, and I'm here today for William. I believe in the royal family.
Oh, I'm here just to experience the whole thing, see the pomp and the circumstance, and, you know, just to be here and get the feeling of the crowd and the excitement. I love it.
Everyone wanted a ringside seat as Prince William finally tied the knot with Catherine Middleton, the girl he'd met and fallen in love with almost 10 years earlier. A mile or so away, in a luxury suite at the Goring Hotel, the bride and her family were getting ready. Around the corner at Buckingham Palace, the rather grey early morning revealed a quiet calm. But behind the palace walls, the well-oiled machinery of an occasion such as this was already in action. Outside the palace and down the Mall, the crowds who'd spent the night in makeshift tents were beginning to stir. The mood was one of growing excitement at the prospect of the pageantry and partying that was to follow. The doommongers who had predicted that no one would care about the royal wedding were about to be proved comprehensively wrong. At the Abbey, everything was now in place. At William and Catherine's request, 8 imposing trees, maples and hornbeams, had been brought in from the royal estates to mark their route up the aisle. In the splendour of this 1,000-year-old royal peculiar, as it's known, meaning that it's neither a cathedral nor a parish church, 38 sovereigns have been crowned, including, of course, our present Queen. and this was to be the 16th royal wedding to be held at Westminster Abbey. The Queen herself was married here, as was her mother and her sister Margaret. By 9 o'clock, the first of the 1,900 guests had begun to arrive. With roads around the whole area sealed off, they'd been asked to allow plenty of time to get to the Abbey. And this was certainly an occasion that no one wanted to miss. All of them felt privileged to be there to witness a moment in history, the marriage of our future king to a girl who'll one day be Queen Consort. The ushers would have their work cut out, seating 1,000 family and friends of the bride and groom, 50 members of the British royal family, 40 foreign royals, 60 governors-general and prime ministers from around the world, and some 200 diplomats and government officials. 80 representatives from Prince William's charities were also amongst those invited to the society event of the decade. And of course, the fashion stakes were high. Everyone had put in a huge amount of effort, some with more success than others. The fashion expert James Sherwood was among those who cast a critical eye over the results.
The press were sometimes less than kind, but I actually think the occasion was incredibly well dressed. As far as British millinery is concerned, I think the royal wedding has demonstrated that the hat is, if not making a comeback, it's certainly triumphant. And actually what we did see in Westminster Abbey were hats that take a lot of, I don't know, it takes a lot of poise to wear these hats, and it takes a lot of commitment, you know. When one looks at the Queen, formal day dress is the Queen's working wardrobe, but for 90% of the women in the Abbey, this was an exception to a rule and something that they really had to rise to the occasion, and they certainly did. It's rather nice for me to see an occasion like the royal wedding where the uniforms are perfect, the morning tales are perfect, and the ladies have made a terrific effort. We read from the invitation that it was morning tails, lounge suits and uniforms were all acceptable, but it's rather nice to see that the chaps came down in favour of uniform and morning tails. And also, you know, we see a lot of RAF uniform because Prince William's currently serving with the RAF in emergency search and rescue. I think what stood out for me at the royal wedding, that it was just lovely to see well-dressed people who know exactly what they're doing, they know how to behave, they're dressed in their best. And you can see waving the Dowager Duchess of Devonshire, Deborah Mitford, the last of the Mitford sisters, with her daughter-in-law, the present Duchess of Devonshire. I always love to see the dowagers because they're almost like galleons sailing forth in the Abbey. It's heaven for me to see, you know, all the pearl chokers with the amethyst clasps and all the classic British family jewels coming out, and see the chaps make the best of themselves too, because I defy any woman to say that a man doesn't look very handsome in a morning coat, especially if it's cut by Savile Row. And Prince Harry's beau, Chelsea Davy, from Cape Town, looking terribly Cape Town, in a sort of Alberta Ferretti cocktail dress, which is almost off the shoulder, almost as acceptable. Off the shoulder is absolutely not, particularly for Westminster Abbey. She's wearing quite a dinky little, it's almost like a button of a hat, designed by Victoria Grant, who I believe is also a favourite of the Duchess of Cambridge.
William and Catherine had been careful not to make this a celebrity event, but a handful of their famous friends were invited. Among them, David and Victoria Beckham.
I think David Beckham's made many a heart swoon as he walked up the Abbey with the new hairstyle, the Elvis, the quiff. Unusual to see a cravat. Mr. Beckham pulls this off, of course, with his usual style. He's wearing Ralph Lauren, almost bespoke, made to measure, I think we'd call it. Mrs. Beckham with the dress for the Victoria Beckham label. A lot of the press thought it was black and made appropriate comments saying that, she looked as though she was in mourning. It's not. It's a midnight blue silk. She is pregnant, and I think she looks absolutely magnificent.
Elton John was there.
I thought it was rather marvellous that the lion's share of the chaps in the Abbey actually wore mourning tails. I mean, even Sir Elton John and his partner David Furnish.
The film director Guy Ritchie is a friend of both William and Catherine.
And here we have Guy Ritchie, who's played it incredibly safe, wearing a terribly traditional black morning coat with the pinstripe trouser and the grey waistcoat. Grey or buff waistcoats are really the form for formal day dress, but at the wedding we did see these wonderful, quite bright yellow waistcoats that seemed to set a fashion. It was terrific to see. We know that the Queen has let it be known that she rather likes morning coats to be buttoned. She doesn't like them to be left unbuttoned.
Tara Palmer-Tompkinson, an old family friend, seemed intent on making quite a fashion statement.
And the socialite Tara Palmer-Tompkinson in this electric blue number that really is off the shoulder. And this sort of boat-shaped hat that points directly down on her nose is a very similar shape to Princess Eugenie's, both designed by Philip Tracy. In fact, one would go so far as to say that Philip Tracy probably had a patent on the entire wedding.
Ben Fogle, the TV presenter and adventurer, made a documentary with William in Africa and has since become a friend. For his heavily pregnant wife, Marina, the biggest worry of the day was that she would go into labour.
Ben Fogle, the television presenter, a very popular sight in the Abbey. I do love that sort of crazy public school hair. Other nationalities would think it looked a bit sloppy, but actually to the Brits that's perfectly pucker.
Also among the guests at the Abbey, the journalist Tom Bradby, who's known the couple for some time and who was invited to conduct their engagement interview. His wife, Claudia, is a jewellery designer, and she once worked with Catherine. The Prime Minister, David Cameron, wore traditional morning dress, but his wife, Samantha, surprised fashion pundits by choosing to go hatless.
The green Burberry dress I did think looked absolutely appropriate. Wouldn't it have been so much better to have seen a hat with that ensemble?
The Deputy Prime Minister, Nick Clegg, and his wife, Miriam, played it safe.
It was interesting that all the British politicians dithered about wearing morning tails because they thought it would possibly make them look slightly upper class. Actually, it just makes you look terribly well dressed, as in the case of Nick Clegg, the leader of the Liberal Democrat Party and the Deputy Prime Minister. Sir John Major dresses to prove why he absolutely did belong in the Abbey in an immaculate black morning coat. And you notice the British gentlemen always mismatch, and so Sir John Major, we see the sort of baby blue tie, the very faded pink shirt and the grey waistcoat. It's actually spot on, totally correct. And it's always rather nice to see the foreign royals out in full force. The King of Tonga is an incredibly popular figure. You notice that he wore a double-breasted morning coat. It's almost more cut like a frock coat, which is most unconventional, but actually it dates back to the Edwardian era.
The last great occasion to be held in the Abbey was the funeral of the Queen Mother in 2002. And 5 years earlier, the Abbey had been the venue for one of the most traumatic events in Prince William's life, the funeral of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. But now his friends, colleagues and family were gathering for a day that signalled a new and bright chapter in William's life. But a day when, no doubt, his mother's absence will be felt more poignantly than ever. Grand royal occasions like this are timed to the minute, and at 10:10, the crowds outside Clarence House knew that William was about to set out on his final journey as a single man. A burgundy Bentley, polished to perfection, rolled out of the gates. At last, the real show was about to get on the road. And what a show it was. Prince William looked distinguished in the famous red uniform of the Irish Guards, of which he's an honorary colonel. Having served with the Army, Navy and the RAF, he was eligible to wear any of their ceremonial uniforms, but he chose the Guards' striking red tunic with his blue garter sash and star and his RAF wings.
And we see Prince William looking rather dashing in the uniform of an honorary colonel in the Irish Guards. It had been rumoured for months that he would be wearing an RAF uniform tailored by Geeves and Hawkes of Savile Row. This would have been in keeping because his great-grandfather, the late King George VI, wore RAF uniform and had permission from George V to wear it because it's not the uniform of the senior service.
Prince Harry, his best man, looked equally dashing in the uniform of a captain of the Household Cavalry, Blues and Royals.
Prince Harry, tailored by Dijon Skinner, is wearing the uniform of the Blues and Royals. He and his brother were painted for a National Portrait Gallery piece 2 years ago wearing the uniform of the Blues and Royals, so it was rumoured that both of the chaps would wear the same uniform. I think it's rather wise that Prince William chose instead to wear the Irish Guards.
For some of the more stalwart royal fans who'd spent the night on a hard, cold London pavement, this was their second encounter with the princes. A handful had been able to chat with them the night before, when William and Harry had suddenly come out of Clarence House to thank the crowds for their support and good wishes. Was very much part of the younger generation steering a new course. Later it was revealed that Harry and William had made the decision on a whim and caught their press office by surprise. Now, as he made his way to the Abbey, to a crescendo of cheers, William might well have been feeling more than the few nerves he'd admitted to the night before. "All I have to do is get my lines right," he'd told the crowds. An obvious reference to his parents' own wedding, when they'd both fluffed their lines. The reality of his wedding day, though, was proving that this was truly a global event. People had come from all over the world to watch the procession and join in the celebrations. As the princes approached Horse Guards, the band of the Coldstream Guards salute. One day it will fall to William as sovereign to take the salute here at the annual Trooping the Colour Parade. As the Princess of Wales once told me, the prospect of being king was something her son viewed as a great burden when he was young. Since then, Prince William has become resigned to his destiny, and perhaps now, as the crowds showed their real affection for him, it didn't seem so bad. And how proud Diana would have been of her 2 boys, now all grown up and so handsome. As they approached the Abbey, the bells rang out, and the crowds who'd been waiting patiently got their first look at the man of the moment. Both William and Harry seemed a little overwhelmed by it all, wringing their hands as the nerves began to jangle. They paused at the door to take off their hats and gloves and to sort out their hair. They were greeted by the Dean of Westminster, the Very Reverend Dr. John Hall. As they shook hands with other members of the Abbey chapter, the princes began to relax and enjoy themselves. Prince Harry had promised to embarrass his big brother with his best man speech later in the day, but for now his role was to support William through one of the biggest moments of his life. After a few last words of advice from the Dean, William and Harry began the long walk up the aisle, nodding greetings to the assembled guests as they went. At their side was a man they've known for many years. Sir Stephen Lamport, now the Receiver General at the Abbey, was private secretary to Prince Charles during the difficult years of Diana's death and beyond. A familiar face to help put William at ease. kiss for his aunt, Diana's sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale. Another moment when Diana herself seemed so palpably missing. And he seemed reasonably relaxed as he exchanged a few words with some of his family and friends. Next to arrive at the Abbey was the bride's mother, Carol Middleton. Accompanying her on the short drive from the hotel where they'd been helping Catherine with her final preparations, her son, James. He had been given the honour, as perhaps a sibling at any other wedding would, of being invited to read the lesson at the service. Carol's outfit won universal approval, including from James Sherwood.
Carol Middleton made a very astute choice. She's wearing Catherine Walker, a great favourite of the late Diana, Princess of Wales. She also chose this wonderful powdery blue, which is genius because you know that the senior members of the royal family have to wear colour blocks. You don't compete with it. You know, you have to take a step back. And in the case of the Middletons, I think they were absolutely pitch perfect in the way that they dressed and the way they behaved at the wedding. As well as, I think, doing a remarkable job reading the lesson at the wedding, James Middleton looked simply immaculate. That was terrific tailoring, courtesy of Eden Ravenscroft, the oldest tailor on Savile Row.
At Buckingham Palace, the crowds were warming up for their end of the spectacle. It began in rather a humble way, with a fleet of rented minibuses to transport all but the most senior members of the family. It's not the first time buses have been used. They were hired in for Charles and Camilla's nuptials.
It was all part of its effort to minimize security and but the buses were a sign of times as they embraced the 21st century. The crowds cheered as the convoy made its way.
The family looked amused to have arrived by a rather novel mode of royal transport.